All right. Last night, it was the Jets over the Oilers in Game 1, and we go out to Winnipeg now and join Sportsnet's Sean Reynolds of the Kenny and Rennie show. Morning, Sean. How was the show last night? I'm probably a good one. I didn't get to catch it.
Yeah, we were on pretty late because Ken of Kenny and Rennie writes for Sportsnet and needed to get his stuff up, and it took a while to do that. So we went on pretty late, but yeah. We're always surprised by the fans, including T. Konopali. Give a shout out to T. Konopali. He's putting all our kids through college. He's all over the place watching us in these spaces. So good on him. Awesome job. But yeah, it was a great show. People were fired up. That's been the big question down the stretch here is the Jets have kind of been falling apart down the stretch. Could they cobble it back together and do the right things? And boy, oh boy, that game that they played last night, Paul Maurice had talked about a blueprint. He talked about the things that they needed to do. That game looked exactly like what he had talked about. So give Paul Maurice credit. He had a vision and he had his players execute it. And as a coach, you can't ask for much better than that in the playoffs.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a textbook Winnipeg Jets victory. It's a playoff victory. Connor Hellebuck was really good. But how did they shut down McDavid and Draisaitl?
Oh, I mean, that's the big question. I honestly don't think that we saw anywhere near the best out of those two players. I think that's part of what we saw there. I mean, everyone always says you got to get the body on these players. You got to hit them. You got to get in their kitchen. Well, I mean, of course you do. Everyone knows that. It's easier said than done, though, when the guy's fast as lightning. You have to be able to catch up with him and stay with him in order to do it. But I think therein lies the answer is they're not necessarily leaving it on one player. They're doing a really good job of, controlling if you're one of 5 players on the ice for the Winnipeg Jets, when Connor McDavid is going by you, you're pressuring him as much as you can until he kind of gets past you. And then that's when the next Winnipeg Jet player is sitting there waiting, ready to take over. And I just thought they did a really good job of kind of pushing him in the areas that you want to push him. I just thought there were so many instances last night where Connor McDavid, who in my mind, I know people think he's mostly an east and west player because he can do that. He's the ultimate north to south player because every time he gets the puck, what he's trying to do is just skate through everybody straight to the net and score. That's the first thing that he tries. And I just thought that directness of his game, getting straight to the net, the Jets just did a good job of constantly kind of pushing him to the outside, in kind of behind the net, where I thought Neil Pionk did a really good job of kind of finishing him, getting the body on him, grinding him down a little bit. Connor McDavid did not look comfortable in that game. Again, I don't think we've seen the best of him, but I think the Winnipeg Jets did that blueprint is going to make it very hard for Connor McDavid to be what he was in the regular season throughout this series if they can continue doing that.
What did you think of the sequence when they scored the go-ahead goal and then the horn goes halfway through the sequence, right? It was that was the 2-1 goal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's your game-winning goal.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the players on the bench said afterwards that they thought that it went in, and they showed a replay, in the little cameras or the little screens in the back that the coaches look at, and saw that it went in. So the players knew in fairly short order, in about 10 seconds, that it was a goal. And Dominic Toninato, who scored the goal, thought that it was in. It was hilarious. Here's a guy who has basically been a taxi squad player the entire year for the Winnipeg Jets, plays a couple games at the end of the regular season, impresses so much in those games that he gets into the lineup, the playoff lineup in game 1, and scores the game winner. But he's such a new guy that he scores and is pretty sure he scores and puts his hands up to celebrate, and then is more worried about looking like an idiot to his teammates by celebrating a goal he didn't score. So he puts his hands down quickly and kind of doesn't question things, whereas, those confident goal scorers would be like, it's in, pointing at the ref. He's just like trying to not look like an idiot, he says to his teammates. And then the cherry on top is Logan Stanley, who, a young rookie defenseman, who another guy who was a big question mark whether or not he was going to be in the playoff lineup. He's the guy who takes the shot and, in full-on rookie focus, just dumps the idea that was a goal, moves on, starts doing all the things he's supposed to do, goes down the ice, and I believe the puck's in his corner when the horn goes, and all the Jets go to the bench and are celebrating there because they've already changed. Dominic Toninato has already left the ice. So the celebration for the players who scored is kind of half on the bench, half on the ice. And big 6'8" Logan Stanley turns around and looks to the bench and sees a bunch of guys gathered and starts heading over there because he thinks there's a scrum that he needs to start chucking knuckles in. So I just thought that was, it was such a delicious story of a bunch of these players who just want nothing more than to contribute to the Jets win, but aren't the kind of guys who usually do it, but came to play in game one, got that opportunity, and their minds were all in the right spaces to do that, to contribute, and it was good to see those guys get a payoff.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, just a complete effort. Now, no Nikolaj Ehlers. They did it without him, without PierreLuc, Dubois, and was kind of said around here in a break, man, if they get those two guys back and play like this, I mean, the series might not be close, but how close are we, do you think, to seeing Nikolaj Ehlers or PierreLuc Dubois in this series?
Well, I don't think we see PierreLuc Dubois in game two. I think there's a possibility for Nick Ehlers, but we still haven't seen him take a slap shot. So, our expectation is that the issue that he's having is with his shoulder. He's skating. He's in really good shape. He's moving the puck around. He's passing it. But he's by no means snapping the puck around. And I mean, Nick Ehlers, for a smaller guy, has a phenomenal shot. He can really rifle it. We haven't seen him do that since before he left. And so you're going to need to, I don't even know that we're going to see him come out and be in a game right away after we see him taking those shots. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him till game three or even later in the series. Although, hey, if he shows up in game two, I could see that happening as well. I see him being further ahead in the timeline than PierreLuc Dubois, and I think that's important for the Winnipeg Jets because I think I've said it on this show before. For me, Nick Ehlers is the team's MVP this season. He's a real game breaker. He really has been able to turn the tide. They need him back in the lineup. Again, I don't think the Jets saw the best of the Edmonton Oilers. It's good. They're going to get better as the series goes on. So the Jets are going to need to get better. Nick Ehlers is a short route to doing that. PierreLuc Dubois has all kinds of talent. It hasn't really clicked for the Winnipeg Jets. I think a lot of the confusion that the Jets have had throughout their lineup during the regular season has had to do with switching the lines up to find something that works for PierreLuc Dubois. They've found that at times with him on the wing. They put him with Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler, and that worked well, but they really do want to use him as a center. I just don't think they found anything that's clicked so far this year. I'm not going to go as far as saying I think he'd be a distraction if he came back, but PierreLuc Dubois, it sounds great to add a big, strong, talented winger back into your lineup, but the issue that exists there with him in the lineup is they just have not found a home for him yet. And as good as the Jets were in that first game and having everything come together, that's a big piece of the puzzle that they haven't been able to fit where it's supposed to go so far this season. And I do think that those issues are something they'll have to deal with on the fly when he does come back into the lineup.
We were just talking about, in the opening segment, about how hard it is to win a game in the playoffs. And to that extent, even tougher to win 4 out of 7. But does that win and going up 1-0 give Paul Maurice a little more flexibility to not rush these guys back?
Oh, I totally think so. Yeah, I mean, it was one of the first things that we thought of last night after that victory happens. Because, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of people who are expecting, hey, the Jets had lost 6 straight games against the Edmonton Oilers. They hadn't figured out how to get their forecheck in on them. And one of their best players, 2 of their best players, are missing out of the lineup. The one advantage that everyone thinks is glaring in this series is that the Jets have the depth that the Edmonton Oilers don't. Now, that showed up in game 1, although I think it showed up in a way, Nate Thompson having 2 assists, Dominic Toninato having a goal, Tucker Poolman having a goal, Logan Stanley having an assist, primary assist on a goal. That's the kind of depth that I don't think people were expecting the Jets to win on. You're expecting them to win off maybe Andrew Kopp doing something on the third line if he's playing with Adam Lowry. Adam Lowry getting something done. Mason Appleton's been great. Matthew Perreault, definitely Nick Ehlers. That's the depth that was supposed to show up and be the difference maker between these two teams that never materialized during the regular season. So I think them getting it done without those players and potentially adding that depth in at a later date definitely, I think, can play a role in this series in the mind game. Because I think if you're Dave Tippett, and I think that if you're Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, who are looking and saying, yeah, I know we carry a lot of the load here, but their guys are showing up to help win a game. Guys you don't expect to show up, guys you don't expect to get on the scoreboard are helping them win this game. Maybe you guys could contribute in that part as well. It can't all be Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And you know what? Maybe those guys are good enough to get the Edmonton Oilers through a couple of series, potentially in the playoffs by doing what they do. But it's all going to end up down the road in a situation where they're going to play really, really good, strong, deep teams that are going to have the ability to shut those guys down at various points. The Edmonton Oilers are going to need a full team effort, full team contribution if they're going to get somewhere. And they might as well start now because they didn't get it in game one. The Jets did, and that's the big difference. Yeah,
it really is. So, man, game 2 in this series goes on Friday. Hey, have you ever been mistaken for Paul Rudd? Because they're asking on YouTube. They said, hey, I thought this was, Ryland Spencer says, I thought this was Paul Rudd on the show. And I get mistaken for Jason Sudeikis. So now they're, welcome to the Jason Sudeikis show.
I definitely see that.
Yeah, welcome to the Jason Sudeikis show. We now head out east and bring in our friend Paul Rudd. That's from Ryland Spencer. So
yeah, it's never happened before. I've heard various other ones, but every time I hear it, they attach a poor man's version beside whoever it is. They'll pick some Hollywood star and say, "Hey, that's a poor man's version of that." So I'll be your poor man's Paul Rudd if you need me to be.
If we ever need to make a buck, we'll go to Vegas and stand on the corner and take photos with tourists. All right, charge some money.
I'm in.
All right, enjoy the day off, game day off until game 2 tomorrow. Appreciate this, Sean.
Anytime.
All right, Sportsnet's Sean Reynolds and co-host of the Kenny and Rennie Show.
You're watching Rod Pedersen on demand. For more of the Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.